Okay, welcome back. So, in this video, we're going to be looking at saving and borrowing, but specifically simple interest. So, this is essentially the formula for simple interest. So, we've got the interest, I equals PRT, where I is the interest, P is the principal, so that's essentially the amount of money that's either borrowed or invested. Now I've got lowercase r here, is the rate, the percentage rate, as a decimal. I like to write lowercase r. Some people put capital R when they're talking about the percent, and they would write capital R divided by 100 to turn it to a decimal. So I like to write it this way. And the T stands for time, and that is in a number of years. So the idea is you would put money in the bank, or you would borrow money from the bank, and over a certain agreed amount of time, and then when you paid that back, you would have to pay back the extra interest. Or for an investment, you get back more than what you put in. Okay, so I think the best way to start here is just to jump into a couple of examples, just to see how this formula is used. Okay, so the first one, $750 is borrowed for 5 years at 8% simple interest. How much interest is charged? Okay, so the interest equals, so this is the principal, 750 multiplied by the rate as a decimal. So we've got 8%. So we're going to have to shift the decimal place 2 spaces. So we're going to end up with 0.08. And then multiplied by the time in years is 5. So without that bit, we'd be working out what's 8% of this amount, and that would be for 1 year, and then we're just multiplying it by 5. This equals $300. So $300 interest is, so this is essentially the fee for allowing someone to borrow that much money. So at the end of the 5 years, the person pays the money back, they would have to pay $1,050. Okay, for the second example, we've got $1,450 is invested for 25 days at 7% simple interest. How much interest does it earn? So saving and borrowing, we use the same formula. Essentially, the person who lends you the money, they would see it as they're investing this money with you, so that at the end of the thing, they earn whatever the rate of percent is. So the important thing to look out for in this one is we're given the time in a number of days. But as I said, the T represents years. So we need to think about what we're going to do with that. The interest equals the principal, which is this much, multiplied by 7%, 0.07. This 7% is how much is earned for an entire year. I'm only talking about 25 days. So we've got essentially a fraction of a year. So I'm going to use this to create a fraction. How many days in a year? 365. So I've got 25 out of 365. And essentially that is the fraction of a year that 25 days is. So I've taken 25 days and I've converted it into a portion of a year. This also comes up with months. So we would say however many months out of 12, maybe fortnights, quarters, but it's about how years are divided up. So plug this in the calculator. Times 7, 5, and then I'm going to, so I pressed equals after that, and then I'm going to divide the total result by 365. So this investment for only 25 days earns $6.95. Not much, but it wasn't for very long. Okay, so that's how we use this. Okay, and this thing where we've got days kind of relates to how when we have a bank account, at the end of the year, they will pay each person an amount of interest, and that's calculated on how much money you had in the account and how long it was there for. If you don't have much money in your account, then it's going to be, or if you get paid and then you from your wages and then you spend that before you get paid next time, it's not in the account for very many days, so you don't get a lot of money. Whereas if you have a lot of money in the bank and you don't spend it, then you earn more interest. Okay, so something worth talking about, just get rid of these, is how credit card interest is calculated. So essentially what happens there is you spend the bank's money. So you go and use your credit card. And you spend the bank's money. So you're essentially, when you pay pass for that thing that you don't have the money for, if you've arranged with the bank that you can spend their money, you're essentially borrowing money from the bank. The bank will have a specific period of days, or it might be until the end of the month, that you have the opportunity to put this money back in to the account. So you pay that money back, and if you pay it back within that amount of time, you don't have to pay any interest. But if you haven't paid it back, then they start calculating the interest for the number of days. Credit cards usually have a 31 or 30-day billing period, depending on the length of the month, and they will use this formula. Their rate is usually pretty high, 20, 25, 30 something percent, which is a very high rate of interest. So try not to use your credit card. Yeah, okay, so the other thing that we can do with simple interest is if we know how much the interest is, and we know two of these things, we can work out the third. So there are different rearrangements of this formula. So let's just write them out. So if I start with I t, so essentially these are three things multiplied together. So if we then divide by any of these on both sides to make this equals true, then we can generate alternate versions of the formula to work out these things individually. So first of all, I'm going to divide both sides by the rate times the time. Over here we've got the rate divided by the rate, the time divided by the time. So we end up with the principal equals the interest divided by the rate times the time. And it's essentially the same process for working out the other variables. So again, this time I'm going to divide by the principal multiplied by the time. T. Because I've done it here, I've got to do it there as well. So the principal cancels out with the principal, the time with the time, and we're just left with the rate. So we get the rate equals the interest divided by the principal times the time. And likewise, I'll just write it out again, PRT, and we're dividing this time by the principal times the rate. So that cancels with that, that cancels with that. Find out that the time equals the interest divided by the principal times the rate. So here we have three rearrangements of the formula. That is, it allows us to work out P, R, or T if we know the other variable. Okay, so I've got a couple of examples that use these. So I'm just going to rub out this bit here. Try and squeeze these examples in. Okay, this will be 3.2. Okay, for how long in years, so we're trying to work out a time, must $1,250 be borrowed at 7% flat before the interest exceeds $400. Okay, so we've got $1,250 at 7% per annum flat. I'm just going to write that out because that is another way. If you see a percent referred to as a flat rate in a question, it's usually simple interest. We're going to come along to compound interest and people get them mixed up. Look for that as a clue. If it doesn't specifically say simple interest, it'll probably say that in the question. Okay, so for how long can we want the interest? Well, let's just work out the interest at $400. Because we want to know how long it takes for this amount of money to earn this much interest at this rate. And we want to know the time. So we're going to use this formula here. How long? In years. So the time equals interest divided by the principal times the rate. So I know these three numbers. 400 divided by 1250 times 0.07. So let's just type this in. And we get 4.57 14, and this is years. So, because we don't really talk in 0.57 of a year, this is whole years. This is a proportion of a year. So to make this slightly more a better answer, we're going to say this is 4 years plus 0.57 0.5714 years. And in order to make this slightly more meaningful, what I'm going to do is multiply it by 12, because there are 12 months in a year, and this is going to come out years end. So with this number in my calculator, I'm just going to take this 4 away to leave me with this number. Multiply by 12, we get 6.857. So the 0.8 means almost 7 months. So it's probably 6 months and probably about 3 weeks. That's not so important. So I worked it out in years, but then this bit could probably do with converting the proportion into months. And then you could probably take what's left, turn it into days. Okay, so that's that example where we're working out time. And all right, okay. So I've got another example where we're going to work out the time. Let's just leave that bit behind. Okay, so for how long in months? So once we get a time in years, this time is in years, we'll just multiply it by 12 and it will tell us how many months. How long in months must $6,000 be invested at 8% per annum, this means per year, to grow $8,000. Okay, so we know we're still trying to work out a time. We know the principal and we know the rate, but they've sneakily not told us what the interest is. But they've told us the total. And so the total is essentially, it's the interest plus the principal. So here we need to do a little sub. So this total equals principal, that's interest. So if we want to work out the interest, we need to take the total, take the principal away. We've got $8,000, taking away the $6,000 we started with. So the interest is going to be $2,000. So now we have the numbers to plug in here. So let's do that. So the time is the interest is 2,000 divided by the principal is 6,000 multiplied by our 8% equals 4.166 recurring. But that's not our final answer. That is in years. So to turn this to months, there are 12 months in a year, so we're just going to multiply by 12. So multiply by 12. Oh, it comes out to exactly 50 months. Okay, so essentially that means if you invest $6,000 at 8% per year, and you're just going to leave it there until the total reaches 8,000, you'd have to leave it for 50 months, which is a bit more than 4 years. Okay, I've got one more example. And this. Okay, so this says Rodney pays $5,000. So principal, I'm just going to write it like this. $5,000 over 18 months. Time equals months. We're going to have to convert that to years. Including interest, he repays a total, and I plus P, the total is $6,200. Find the flat rate of interest over the course of the loan. Okay, so we need this to be years. So for every 12 months, we've got 1 year. So I'm going to divide by 12, and I can do that one in my head. It is 1.5 years. The interest plus the principal is 6,200, but we only want to know the interest, so we need to take this and that. This equals, doesn't equal, interest equals 6,200, take away 5,000, 2,200. So now we're trying to work out the rate. So here's our R, and we've got interest, the principal, and the time in years. Always remember it's in years. So little r equals 1,200 divided by principal's 5,000 times the time, 1.5. This equals 0.16 exactly. And because it's asking us for a rate, a percentage rate, we now need to multiply this by 100 to turn it into capital R, 16% per annum. So, in order for $5,000 to be invested for 18 months and to earn this much money, this is the rate of interest that it needs to earn. Okay, so I've got one more example where we're trying to work out the rate. So, get rid of this. I'll get rid of those numbers. I'm not really sure if we're going to get told the interest or the interest plus the principal. Okay, so here's the example. Whoops. Harrison needed extra cash to purchase a Christmas present for his partner, and so took out a payday loan from Rapid Loan. So a payday loan is a short-term loan offered to applicants with secure employment for a very short period of time. So it's usually until your next pay. They will expect you to pay that off. Payday loans usually involve high rates of interest, and they tend to not want to tell you what the percentage rate is because it's a lot. Okay, so he borrowed a total of $550, which he repaid over 2 months. And he eventually, by the time he'd finished paying, he paid $684. Find the flat rate of interest. So he borrowed, which is the principal, $550 over 2 months. We need to convert that to years. And the total he paid back, so that's this bit, 684. So, oops, put in the dollars. Okay, so 2 months as years. There are 12 months in a year, so we've got 2 out of 12 years. So that's just a fraction, 1/6. Doesn't really matter for the time being. And the interest plus the principal is this. So if we take the principal away, interest equals $130. So we want to find essentially we want to work out the percent again. So here's our formula. We're going to use this one. Rate interest over principal times the time. So we've got 130 divided by 550 times, let's keep it like that, 2/12. It's okay to put fractions at the top and bottom of fractions as long as we calculate this as a number, that is a number. 130 divided by, I'm going to put this bit in brackets, 550 times 2 divided by 12. We've got 1.41818181. And so that 81 keeps going. Instead of a dot above, we put a little line. Doesn't really matter for now. So that's our rate as a decimal. And we want to multiply it by 100 to get our capital rate is 141.82%. That's a huge amount of percent, which is why payday loans aren't that great.